Colorado's presidential scholar, which is a highly esteemed group of people. So with that, oh, and obviously one of his other main areas of interest is in educational technology. So today I think we're going to hear, it's a continuation of one or two other talks we've had here that are really, those of us in education are really getting quite interested in. Are we about to walk off a cliff in terms of what education really looks like due to technological advances? And Clayton has a very exciting talk prepared for you on that. Yeah? Thank you,
Donna. So one small parochial correction. So Donna mentioned the cognitive walkthrough. That's a 100% University of Colorado product. We didn't do anything with that in the Watson days. Okay, so if you read the abstract, you can doze off. You won't need to listen to the talk, but if you want to, here's the starting point. This is an article that perhaps many of you have seen. As you see, it's not new. It's 1995. You can read the statement there. You only know him as a thinker. And the column, which I recommend to everybody, you'll be able to find it pretty easily from the information that's up there. It's a historical argument. So it says that universities began as adjuncts to to libraries. So back when books were scarce, there was a time when they were really scarce because they were all handwritten, but then even after printing, books remained things that you had to go to. They weren't widely available, and probably maybe all of you know that the root word of the word lecture that we still use all the time is reading. And the idea for that was very simple and practical. So somebody has a book, you'd like to know what's in it. So would a whole lot of other people. So the person who has the book reads it to all of you. And for efficiency, they gather a whole lot of you in the room to listen to it all at once, right? Well, why does that make sense? Well, it made sense because you couldn't just go and get the book yourself. Well, Noam's pointing out that universities don't need to play the role any longer of providing access to information. There are other ways to do that. And so we need to be rethinking what we're going to do. And I want to call your attention especially to the sort of last piece there. So what he's saying is, all right, we can stop doing a lot of things that we put a lot of energy into. And what we should keep doing is guidance, role modeling, and interaction. Okay, so hold that thought. So what's happening here at CU? So many of you here are in the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm not, but I found out about this anyway. And this is from a memo that came out this year. And what that's saying basically is, well, we used to have a requirement that people take an upper division course in their major with small enrollment taught by a tenured or tenure-track faculty member. We can't afford that anymore, right? So on that one, we have Ellie Noam saying, here's what universities need to be doing more of, stuff like that. And here we are saying, well, sorry, folks, we can't do that anymore. This is a problem. So there's a way to look at this kind of thing. And this book is one that I've come across that talks about this. So, if you follow what's going on, newspapers in trouble, the travel agencies have had their business, substantially redone, the music industry, the photography industry, all kinds of industries are being changed by, as it says here, the new economics of information. So we need to ask ourselves, are we immune somehow from what's buffeting lots of other institutions? Or are we going to be affected by these things as well? And this book gives case studies and a little bit of framing for this, which I'm drawing on. So here's the traditional package. So universities do a lot of different things, and they do it all at once. These are elements I'm going to talk about. But the question is, will new information and communication technology take this package apart? Okay, so roughly what's happened to newspapers is that newspapers were two businesses, one that made money and one that lost money. The business that made money was classified advertising, and the business that lost money was news, right? But as long as newspapers tied those two things together, we all had news and we had classified ads. come Craigslist, and Craigslist says, gee, classified advertising looks like a darn good business to be in. We think we'll be in that business. News? News? What's news? Right? So that's the kind of dismantling that I'm talking about here and that people talk about as part of this analysis of the impact of new technologies. So the question is somebody dismantle our package? So what's happening with the elements of these? Well, there's the access to information part, but Noam has basically already talked about that, right? So nobody needs us to sort of put information out there anymore. And one of the things I'm sure most people here know is that MIT has said, gee, we've got courses in lots of things, and we'll make all those course materials available. Okay, so nobody else needs to do that, right? We can have arguments about how much of a difference is a difference, but if you look at it, not everybody needs to put out materials for an introductory economics course, for example, right? I mean, it's not like there has to be only one, but there doesn't have to be one per university anymore. Learning to solve problems. Steve Pollack pointed out when I gave an earlier version of this talk that I kind of left this piece out. And much of our teaching, what we try to do as faculty is to help students, we're not just trying to give them information, we're trying to help them to learn how to think. And as I've tried to indicate here, well, this kind of splits out according to how we're doing it. So if we're taking advantage of the fact that we have people here in person, then we're doing one of those things that Ellie Noam says we need to be focusing on. But if we're doing it another way, then we're vulnerable. So if we're doing this by packing lots and lots of people into a room and we're not taking advantage of their being there in some interactive way, which too often we don't take advantage of that, then somebody else can displace what we're doing. And I've put the little hedge in here, maybe we're vulnerable even if we are doing things face-to-face. Online technologies where people interact are getting better all the time. So we focus mainly or often on sort of delivery, access to information, which is really important. But at the same time, ways for people to interact online are also coming along. And some of those things are going to threaten even things that we might do face-to-face. Research and education. So this is something where we may be vulnerable to a split, and this is a big topic, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody who wants to get into it more or wants to have an argument about it. But I'll assume that what I'm saying here are the facts, and you may be shocked by them, and we may need to have an argument. But the fact is that academic research is not a cost-plus business. It's not a business on which you earn a profit. It's a cost-minus business. And how big the minus is kind of depends. But part of this is that the overhead that many faculty think of as their sort of gift to the institution, the overhead that all of our grants together bring in systematically under-recovers the actual overhead. And again, there's a lot of things. Somebody could say, well, I hardly spent any overhead on my grant, and look at the huge charge that's being made. Well, it's all done on averages. So for every grant that doesn't spend as much as the overhead rate, there's another grant that spends exactly that much more, or actually a little bit more than that more. So the whole thing works out that the university loses money at the level of a few percent on the whole overhead deal. But quantitatively, I think, I've not actually done the numbers, but I'm pretty sure if you did the numbers, the answer would come out pretty strongly, that there's another subsidy for the research enterprise, which has to do with what people are paid in their teaching role as a premium for their being researchers. Right? And to get at that, you just have to look at, for instance, if I go on sabbatical and someone is hired to fill in for me in the classroom, they get paid a whole lot less than I do. Right? So what that's saying is that the university feels it could cover its teaching role much more cheaply than it chooses to do. Okay? Because they pay people like me to do it instead of people that they regard as apparently equally well qualified on just the educational side. And the thing down at the bottom there, so maybe everybody knows what a cross-subsidy is. Again, the newspaper is an example of that. So the news business was supported by a cross-subsidy from the classified ad business. If somebody comes along and says, I just want to do classified ads, I don't want to pay the cross-subsidy, they'll be able to offer the product at a lower price. The thing here is, if people say, I'm just going to be an educational